Recently, I brought together 3 creative directors and founders to discuss exactly what they look for in a portfolio when hiring. We talked about how to improve your portfolio, and we also discussed what mistakes you should be looking out for. And there was some pretty surprising advice. If you would like to attend our next roundtable discussion live, then you should sign up to our newsletter to get an invite. I'll leave the link below this video in the description. Hey everyone, and welcome to our first ever Motion Hatch live roundtable discussion. I'm really excited to be here with Ryan Summers, Austin Bowens, and Amanda Russell. So let's start first with Austin. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Austin, co-founder of Revi.co, a motion design studio based out of Raleigh, North Carolina. And just recently, we started a motion design subscription called Delight. So that's what's going on in my world. That's
awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited to hear more about that, but we'll get onto that later. Ryan, how about you?
I'm doing good. I'm Ryan Summers. I'm online as Otternaut, and I'm creative director at a company called Spilt. But you might have run into me at School of Motion in the past.
Awesome. And Amanda, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Amanda Russell. I'm one of the co-founders and creative directors at Cream Studio. We're based in Richmond, Virginia. We've been around for about 10 years.
So what we're going to do first then is we're going to take a look at one of my students from our course Client Quest. We're going to look at his portfolio. He is called Aldo. So I'm going to just share my screen, and then we're going to have a look at his showreel. We're going to have a little look around his website, and we're going to talk about it. So this is Aldo's homepage, and then he has his work down here, which you can click into. And then if we go over here, he has a nice about page with a lovely picture of himself. I'm always a fan of having a picture of yourself. So if you don't, that's definitely something I would recommend putting on your portfolio, because it's nice to see all of your lovely faces. And then he's got his contact page here. So all in all, a pretty simple website. But let's watch the reel first, and then we'll kind of go around and we can talk about it between us, I think. I really love this reel, by the way. And a little bit of background too that I wanted to give all the guests and everyone watching is Aldo is actually come from a photography background and is moving over to 3D motion design. And every bit of his work at the moment is personal projects, which I think is pretty amazing. And that's kind of why I wanted to point it out, because one of the questions that I get a lot of the time is it okay to put personal projects on your website?
Yeah, of course. I mean, personal projects is largely the reason I'm even here talking as a guest now, I'm sure. I mean, last year was a huge year for our studio because of just posting on social. So I would highly recommend putting your personal projects up because, first of all, I mean, you're showing the type of work that you really like creating. So if you want to have clients coming to you, getting to make like an amazing project every time based on the work that you really love doing, show them the stuff that's your favorite to make. You know, if you're making the stuff for clients, it's not necessarily the best experience, and you're showing that sort of work instead, you're only going to continue getting people coming to you for the projects you don't like. So put your best foot forward and show the work that you like the most. And as far as just like more specific feedback on the portfolio, more as a tactical thing, it's kind of tricky to figure out how to fit it in sometimes, but I find it super, super helpful. Rather than only having your email in your contact page or at the end of your reel, try slotting that in as close as you can to the top of your site, right underneath that tagline, because that way, even if they don't go through all your work or they don't watch the whole reel, they've already seen your email up there, so they know they can scroll right back up to it and contact you right away if they need to.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have your contact information really clear. I usually suggest having the contact button in the top right-hand side because that's usually where your call to action is. And what I'd say with Aldo, probably what you could do better is maybe make this a button so it's like really standing out as well. But yeah, Amanda, how about you?
Yeah, when I was looking at the portfolio, I I really liked how stark it was because I could focus on the work itself. One of the questions that was sent in by one of the guests was actually like, should I overly design my website? And I think here's your answer. You don't have to. It can be very simple so that you can display the work and then the work can shine. I mean, it still has to be designed and well designed, but it doesn't have to it should not overshadow the actual work. And this is a great example of that. As far as the reel goes, there were a bunch of things that I loved about it that really struck me. The music choice was just very different from what we usually hear in, the show reel world. So I loved that choice. It was sophisticated, elegant, all of that. But in addition to the music itself, he left in some sound design. And that really made it more of an experience instead of just kind of like watching a blaring reel, which I'm guilty of all the way through, and nothing's really living or breathing in that moment. Aldo's reel is different in that way, and that you're getting the essence of each piece because the sound design is still living within that world. Loved all of that, and the last thing I'll have to say is it's very short. It's 30 seconds, which I would say is probably the minimum of what you should be going for, but it's still so effective. It doesn't make me disappointed watching it. It makes me go, ooh, I want to see more. I want more of that. And I don't get tired of it, which is a really, really good thing. So I loved it.
Can't agree more with what they said. I will actually say that I love very short reels. As somebody who has to watch reels all the time, and when you're trying to hire someone, you could be looking at 300, 400 reels in a couple of weeks. My heart is rooting for every single reel I watch, but my brain and my timer from my producer is looking for an excuse to move on to the next reel, if that makes any sense. It sounds brutal, but when you're watching 15 a day, you're like, okay, I need someone who does this. Do they do that in the first 3 shots? No. And sadly, sometimes you move on, especially when you see that there's still another minute and a half left. So I love to see short reels when they're focused. And to what Amanda said, just to like, yes, and that, I think a demo reel is like a teaser trailer for a movie. And your website is the trailer. And everything that you're doing, every touch point, every tweet you make, every piece you post, how you theme your website, that is all trying to get to that first conversation, that first email or the first Zoom or the first in-person discussion. So if it leaves you hanging a little bit, that's good, because I should want to go to your website to find out more. If I see your website and I see 3 things I like that weren't on the reel, I want to go and ask you about those. So to me, that's a huge advantage if it's short and focused and is specific. I loved everything. I loved the sound design. The fact that there was sound design purposely added, like there was a moment where 2 glass bottles are rolling over each other that really like froze me in my tracks. That makes me think that you have a vision beyond just, hey, give me an assignment, I'll make stuff. It makes me actually feel like you might be an art director or a creative director that's like in training. The only missed opportunity I would say is that in that whole idea of like a teaser trailer, if you watch, we just had the Super Bowl here in the States. If you watch a teaser trailer on YouTube, they actually do like a mini teaser before the teaser in the same trailer itself, and they'll show 3 really cool shots and then show the title of the movie and then show the trailer. I think that was the only thing I was missing, was that you didn't have an opportunity to connect all this awesome work with your name and what I should remember you for, right? So if within the second or third shot, after you had all this cool stuff, even on that shot with the headphones floating up, if it floated up and it floated past your name, and it said motion designer or 3D designer with a love for photography, that gets so, it becomes so immediate. The other thing that I really love about the website that I'm trying to get more people to do with demo reels is try to create more of a narrative. On, I believe, his about page, there are 3 really great testimonials. I think there's a world where you could design a beautiful space for type to be sitting in there and have those testimonials in your actual demo reel and have a narrative that challenges people to read and look closer and find out more about you to then go to your site. It doesn't have to be just work. It can be a narrative, a discussion, something that challenges, the viewer a little bit more, especially when these are great. These are kind of buried away on the site, but if you'd elevate 1 or 2 of them into the reel, it just pushes you further in terms of like, you're not just starting out, you're way more, you've worked with people, you've had experience. So Yeah, great reel, great site.
Yeah, I was going to say about testimonials, because that's one of the things I'm telling my students all the time is to put them on there. What I would say, I think I actually said this to Aldo in his portfolio review that we did together, is to, if he can, get photos of people to go with those testimonials. Because for me, I feel like it makes it more real. You know, it's like, oh, these are real people. And it also makes your website look a bit more exciting. I know that Aldo is going for this kind of minimalist look, but I just think from like a trust point of view, I really like having the photos on there. And I like what you said about, Ryan, about having the testimonials and the reels. I hadn't thought about that, but I think like at least having them maybe on your homepage underneath the reel or before the reel or something like that. It doesn't just have to be on the about page. I think you could like pick the best one and have that on your homepage as well.
And one thing I wanted to mention as well is that on the about page, he's got a little link where it says, I'm a photographer, and it goes into his photography portfolio. What a great idea that is, to separate those two things, because all too often the viewer is sort of overwhelmed with a mashup of work and creative efforts, you know, from photography to CG to everything else. And so it's great to show off that you're an artist, but if they can be categorized or siphoned off in some way that's easily digestible for the audience, it's way more effective in that way.
I think someone even just asked that in the chat. They said, what's your opinion on displaying the year of release in the reel? I think you never put the date because it'll always be out of date almost immediately. You never say reel because it's redundant. I know I'm watching a reel, so why say motion design reel? Say your name and then say what Amanda was saying. Say those things that you want people to remember you by, whether it's motion designer, After Effects artist, or designer/photographer, or something that's a little bit more creative. It's that one moment to gift somebody when they're sitting in anticipation and excited and waiting for you to show their best. Build that into their brain, into their memory of who you are right away before you've even shown them. It's one of the biggest missed opportunities I see people on almost every one of their reels is saying 2022 demo reel. It's like, yeah, I know. Like it's like having a billboard and not showing the product, right? So I think it's worthwhile to always think of that.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And one last thing that I'll add is just an extra way to really try and make sure that you're getting people to the finish line when they're seeing your portfolio. One thing that's helped us a ton on that contact page is, sure, you can have your form there, but have some sort of calendar integration or something, because if everybody has to type out their whole message in here, I know I'm totally guilty of having typed out a couple sentences and then being like, I don't want to finish this right now. And then you never end up going back, you know, like trying to write out the perfect message. Whereas instead, if you can just click a couple buttons and book a meeting with somebody, which depends on how you work, if you like that sort of thing. But I don't know. I think it's helped book a lot more calls and really get face to face with the person, which tells a lot more than you can in a portfolio, you know, is those conversations.
Yeah, I definitely agree, Austin. I think that I've been telling a lot of the students to use Calendly. Obviously, there's other tools out there that you can use. But what I think is really good is having some qualifying questions as well. I think it's good, especially if you want to know maybe about the budget or what the project might be like. But I would think about each question that you add to that form, you're making it harder for the client to get in touch with you. So it's definitely good to be mindful, I think, about how many questions you put in there, especially if you're just starting out. But if you're a little bit more experienced, I think adding some of these qualifying questions in there before they book a call with you can really help to save their time and your time as well. Got a question that Adam submitted live, which I think lots of people asked me, so I think we should address it, is how does one handle not having a lot of professional work due to NDAs, essentially? So that was Adam's question. Yeah. It's a tricky one, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a fun treat.
Password protected section on your site.
There you go.
I mean, that's the first step. I mean, the other thing is, like, so many people get stuck in that, but like, you've learned some really important things probably from those NDA jobs, right? That's where it's like, I get the same question about people who are like, all I have is School of Motion classes, just the work I did in classes. Like, yeah, but you learned something. Go and make your thing, or team up with another designer who can give you designs that don't look like that and send off that bag signal of like, I've seen this 1,000 times, and go and make a new 3-second thing, make a new 5-second thing. If, like we were saying, 30 seconds is enough. That's 6 5-second things, right? It's not that much. I mean, we just saw Aldo. His entire piece was all self-motivated, and it doesn't look like it's just a bunch of personal work. It looks like someone's like, I made these things for a specific reason. So, I mean, I think that's the way I would take it, or, you know, stick in a password, but it's harder to generate that buzz of somebody who doesn't know anything you've done by, here, watch my password protected site, please.
Yeah, here, go input my password, please. That sounds fun. I think you're entirely right, Ryan. And I mean, more often than not, I think you just have to treat yourself like the client at some point. You have to force yourself to find some time to make those personal projects to fill that void. If you know that gap is there, you got to be able to spend some time to just put out, whether it could even be like a second and it just loops or something, 2 seconds, whatever. But just like keep active and show that you're continuing to work. That's so much more important than like, I worked for this AAA client doing X, Y, and Z. You could probably make you were the same person that made that, make something that feels like that on your own, even on a small scale.
I would add on to that with a couple of notes. Usually your clients will say, no, you can't show it. There's an NDA, whatever. Password protect it, do whatever you need to do. Another thing that you can do is remove the audio, remove all of the branding, and do not put the company name or anything about the company in there. They will find it. And they have with us, not through us, but one of our artists. So it's really serious. Just make sure that you're playing by the rules. But also, usually, if you have a conversation with your client and say, hey, I really like this clip from this piece. I'm going to remove all the branding. Can I use this clip from this piece in my reel? They will usually say yes, because it's really, there's nothing in there about them, or about, anything that is going to give away the product or service. So just having that open line of communication, you always want to ask. Don't expect it, because eventually it will catch up to you. But that's the kind of stuff that we've learned over the years. But just asking and just maintaining those good relationships will get you much further than you expect.
I just feel like I need to do my spiel. Like, obviously, this isn't legal advice, and this is educational only. I always feel like I have to say that. But Amanda's completely right. I think that you have to ask, really, and be very careful about this stuff. I mean, I wanted to, Seth submitted a question before today, and I wanted to get to it, but I feel like we've kind of covered it. And his question was, he's working at a film company, and they do a lot of live action commercial work, but they're trying to make their way into the animation space. And it's just about, what's the best path forward for that?
I mean, I think this begs the bigger question that a lot of what we're talking about really at the root of this is about positioning. And I think we're at a crux in the industry, the motion design industry, that if you're positioning yourself as a live action company or a motion design company, like, you're missing the boat, right? The position, like he's saying, well, we were a live action company starting to do animation. Start telling people why you're doing animation, because there's something that you learned from doing live action that you're now bringing that's unique to your point of view on animation, right? Is it bringing animated characters into live action backgrounds? Is it having a handheld camera aesthetic that a motion designer would never have, and you're bringing that to your After Effects and your motion design? That's the compelling story that separates you, not just like, hey, here's another thing on the menu of stuff we sell, you could buy that too, right? That's what 90% of motion design studios do, but I don't think that's going to work as effectively in the near future, and you're missing a huge opportunity to, again, cut through that crowd, whether it's a studio or a freelancer.
Like with everything else, so much of the way you can market yourself as unique, or, I hear people ask about, like, how do I have my own style and those sorts of things all the time. You, as the person, is the unique part. That is what you bring to the table. You have to showcase that. You can try. The way I try and look at it now is like, I try and kick myself in the butt from a year ago, is because I spent way too long trying to be like this person or like that studio or whatever. But all you're doing is just running and playing catch up, trying to chase what they're already at, In 2 years, maybe you'll be like they were 2 years ago. You don't want that. Bring yourself to the table. Be open and transparent with people about why you're making these decisions, and you're bound to be able to get a much deeper impression on these people and get them to understand, hey, cool, yeah, it's personal work and like it looks great, but here's also like, look, it makes sense,
Don't forget that, you can stir yourself up into analysis paralysis, where you're like, well, I can't find the work, but I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get it. And if I don't get work, then I can't have any to show. No, that's wrong. If you love animation, if you love motion design, all of these things, start doing it on your own. And that is your calling card. Seeing is believing. And when they see it on your website, they're going to believe that they can trust you to actually do it. But otherwise, it's not going to happen. It doesn't just I mean, any reputable company is not just going to say, "Hey, you can design something. I'm sure you can animate too." That's not how it works. You know what I mean?
I was going to say, I have a question for you, Amanda, and probably for you too, Austin. Like, only very recently did I realize the distinction between marketing and branding. Like, marketing is everything you put out in the world to try to tell people who you are, but your brand is what everybody who you've ever worked with says about you when you're not in the room. Amanda, do you ever, or Austin, do you ever like ask the people that you've worked for in the past, like, so what do you think of us? When I say cream or I say Ravy, like what comes to your mind? Because I think that's an important like exercise for anybody watching this. Like, if you ever worked for somebody, have them tell you back what they think of you when you ask them that.
You know, that's a great question, because we didn't really start doing that, or I didn't really start asking our clients until maybe 3 or 4 years ago, when it started being easier for us to define ourselves, because we are 3 owners with 3 different aesthetics, 3 different creative directors. You know what I'm saying? So like finding one studio aesthetic was not ever in the cards for us. So we were probably too afraid to ask anyone because we thought we would just be too disjointed. But what we started hearing at first was, "Oh, you guys are so fun and colorful, and you always bring, this certain style or an essence of, whatever." And so it was like, okay, like that's our thing then. And so we actually used that as a jumping off point for our marketing and really kind of absorbing that and saying, okay, well, how do we actually push more into that space? That's a really good question, Ryan.
Yeah, I agree. And on our end, I mean, I need to be more proactive about actually asking people directly, but we put out so much content that, it's like whatever we put out, there's comments and there's feedback and whatever all the time. So I just haven't really thought to ask that much. But recently we've been falling a little bit too far into the, we're guys who do orbs shtick. So we're trying to shake that a little bit. But, we love our orbs. So we're living in that a little bit.
Well, I mean, you're kind of on the opposite side of the spectrum where you've pulled the veil back so much that I think that's an important thing for people to understand, because they're so focused on, I got to make pieces for my reel, but there's as much, if not more, interest in the how you made the reel, why you made the work, who do you work with. Like what you all are doing is in my mind kind of like a return to what studios used to do, where they may have done it on a bigger budget and they might have hired a whole film crew, and you guys are doing it in like micro doses of it. But I don't think that that's all that radically different from when there were only 10 studios doing this, everybody used to do, to show to the clients out there why they're different from the other 9, right? So it's way more available. You can build an audience way quicker. You're speaking to way more people. But I think I've seen a couple of people ask, like, "Oh, how do I get my reel out there? And what do I have to, which social media is like the silver bullet?" It's like, it's not really that. It's more like, again, what's your story? Who is your audience? Can you get your story out faster without having to make new pieces? I think if you look at what Austin's doing, like, yeah, you can. I know exactly what I would get if I hired Austin's team in terms of interaction, like what their personality is, what their styles are, what they enjoy. And I've never looked at your demo reel. I've watched your streams. I've seen like your posts. So I have a really good sense of who that is. That could be a way for people to kind of jump ahead versus being like, I got to spend 2 years making a brand new reel.
Yeah, that I was going to say about that, because I was thinking about like why Austin is here on this right now is because you've been doing stuff that is different, that like stands out, that other people haven't done before, and I think as a studio anyway, and I think that's really interesting. And I liked what you were saying about that. Like it's not like, okay, this one size fits all and everybody needs to do this. You kind of need to do what works for you as well. And this is a lot about what I teach in my courses. It's like experimenting, testing things out, and then going back and go, okay, did that work? All right, let's try this thing now. And I mean, I will say, like, in terms of what you're saying, Ryan, like, oh, what's the silver bullet and things like that, I don't think there is, but I definitely think that a lot of people are using LinkedIn at the moment, and there's a big community over there, and it's a good community, and also I know a lot of our students are getting a lot of work from there. So like, if someone's like, I literally don't know where to start, I would say start there, but obviously you need to, do what works for you and the clients that you want to attract. Awesome. Well, we're coming up to the top of the hour, and I want to make sure that I'm mindful of all of our lovely guest time today. So I want to say thank you so much to Ryan, Amanda, and Austin for joining me for this first ever Motion Hatch Live Roundtable. But the next live event that I'm doing will be on the 1st of March, so pop it in your calendars. It's called the Stress-Free Way way to scale your motion design business in 2023. So if anyone here is trying to scale up, maybe you've actually got the issue that you've got too many clients and you're stressed out and overwhelmed, then I think that could be a good one for you. We've got a new coaching program called Business Bootcamp. So if that sounds like you should take our quiz, because that will give you access to the free live training that I'm doing on the 1st of March. And also it will give you any more information about Business Bootcamp, and it will let you know if it's a good fit for you, because I always want to make sure I'm not wasting anyone's time. So it will tell you straight away if you're a good fit or not, and it will also point you to resources that will be a better fit for you in your career and your next steps. And if you're watching this later on a replay, we'll pop it below in the description as well with all the lovely guests links as well. So please do go and check them out. Now that you've learned how to improve your portfolio, you might want to watch these videos next. And remember to sign up to our newsletter to attend our next live event.